Hello and welcome back. Before we begin, I recommend you sit down and strap in. Not for any narrative reason, the artificial grav has been acting up again, and I'd rather not have another smear on the back wall. Many questions are posed by science fiction as a genre. Where are we going as a species? How will our efforts manifest in a world where we won't live to see? But on a more unique level, what does it mean to be an observer of history? To be in the moment of historical importance, to be surrounded by big people with big names, while the fabric of our known reality starts to crack under the constant change of life itself. Unfortunately, it means being one of the untold millions who not only lived in the time and place of change, but one of the lucky few who survived and perhaps didn't even recognize the importance of what they bared witness to. On this note, this is Citizen Sleeper, an RPG day-to-day sim released in 2022. The game runs off a tabletop-esque dice system combined with an almost Persona-style day cycle system broken up by some of the most interesting character and story writing I have ever seen in a game. How it works is you start a day and are given a number of dice depending on your body's remaining durability, and you get to attempt actions with those dice during that day. If you are at half durability, you get 3 dice. If you are at full, you get 5. If you run out of durability, well, you're dead. Now you might be wondering, why is my body deteriorating with every cycle? Well, that is where both my and your story begins. You enter this world as a sleeper, someone who sold off their body, life, and whole future to a mega corporation. Why you did this? Who knows? Maybe you reached the end of the line and were forced into it. Maybe you sacrifice yourself for the sake of funding a family member you may never see again. Or maybe, just maybe, you bought the ads and thought, it can't be that bad. It is. Unfortunately, it quite definitely is. Whatever it may be, you signed a contract, or should I say, somebody did, and you were born. A sleeper is the copy of a human consciousness programmed into a sturdy synthetic body for the purpose of durable labor. You are a sleeper, and it's time to wake up. Before I go any further, I just need to declare massive spoilers. I love this game. Go give it a try. I'm going to be spoiling a lot of it. Hatching a plan with your fellow workers who had had enough, you made your escape and found your way stowed away inside the walls of a cargo ship heading God knows where, but anywhere is better than where you are. It's a desperate situation, but don't worry, it only gets worse from here. Upon arriving, you meet your first character and friend, Dragos, the mildly eccentric old scrapper who uses drones to peel apart old wrecks into usable salvage. He's also got a bit of a gambling problem, but what human doesn't have a vice or two? This man gives you your start. He tells you where you are, a corporate neutral space station known as the Eye. He also teaches you the basics of what you need to know to survive on the Eye, and gives you a place to spend the nights. On your list of current priorities, priority number 1, you are dying. Your body is proprietary hardware, and the longer you go without a shot of proprietary goop, the more your body will break down. It is a fail-safe built into you. Priority number 2, you are starving and out of money, but luckily, Dragos has work for you. And finally, priority number 3, definitely the lowest on the list. You now have a life and a bit of freedom, but no goal, a meaningless existence. You probably won't solve this right away because it isn't that high up on your priorities, but eventually you are gonna have to think about what you're doing here and why you're doing it. Oh yeah, and priority number 4, the corporation will be sending someone to retrieve you, eventually. You might want to pay attention to that. You will be juggling these 3 main priorities starting right now, and will stop around the time you bite the dust. This is where this game really starts to take off. It's all about problem solving while trying to juggle your basic survival needs. For instance, you need a doctor, and Dragos recommends looking around the local markets. You can ask around or simply observe and take your time. Either way, once you know your way around the market, but more importantly, people know you there, you can access the whole area. You now have access to the doctor, Sabine, who knows your situation and will sell you the medicine you need need to survive, but for a hefty price. And I don't mean just money. You are now involved in Sabine's story. Why is she here? Why does she seem to want to escape? Where is she trying to go? And that's not all. For every person you meet on the Eye, you become a part of their story, no matter how big or small. But for now, you have two problems solved. As long as you have money, you won't break down, and you won't starve as long as you have access to the markets. But why shouldn't you break down or starve? This is, as per usual, your choice. What do you want as a character? Do you want to discover the deep secrets behind the megacorps that have set the human race in its current path and put you in a synthetic body? Or do you want to make a shitload of money and run as far as your legs can possibly take you? Well, me and the character that I created, I just wanted some place to call home. I didn't want to run. I didn't want to get embroiled in something that could get me killed, and I sure as shit didn't want to make a name for myself. I just wanted a home, to know that I had a tomorrow. Now, to tell the story from beginning to end would only be me regurgitating the game in my own words, and it's written so beautifully I highly recommend you play it. So instead, let me tell you the tale of the three people and their stories that I played the greatest role in on my time on the ring. First is Lem and Mina. I first met Lem after Dragos had unfortunately kicked me out. He was rightfully afraid of the corporation sending someone to find and kill me. So after a big job was done, so was I in his mind. I started working for a much larger group who had been tasked with finishing construction on a massive colony ship. It was hard work, but it paid well, and as a sleeper like myself, I was in little danger of welding the outer shell of a ship in the vacuum of space. It's what I was built for. By the way, my character, I chose to start as a mechanist, or mechanic? This guy. I was the mechanic guy. There you go. Lem approached me out of kindness, seeing that I didn't get along with many of the other workers. He was kind, a gentle soul, honestly. Soon after meeting, I met his little girl, Mina. She unfortunately didn't like me as much as Lem did, however, but it's understandable. Taking a look at myself, I'm not exactly what a little girl would call normal. Either way, Lem and I grew closer over the cycles, working side by side. I helped him with some more difficult tasks, and in turn, he helped me with the rest of the crew, helping them lighten up around me and get me into the group. And then one cycle, an announcement changed everything. As it turns out, the corporation needed a crew for the colony ship, and of course, they didn't want to lose any more of their own people, so they would be pulling a lottery once the ship was completed, and they would choose from the people who worked on the ship who would actually be going on the ship to watch it during its voyage. It was, without a hint of pun, a one-way ticket to a new life, something both Lem and I desperately wanted. For Lem, it meant raising his daughter in a place where she could grow, have a future, away from all the greed and trials of the inner worlds. And for me, obviously, it meant going so far that even the corporations couldn't follow. I could finally have a home that nobody could disturb. We worked hard to be chosen as part of the main welding teams, which was required to be a part of the lottery, taking overtime and making sure that anybody needing anything, and I mean anything done, would call us first. Eventually, though, Lem hit the limit of how long he could leave his daughter alone, and he needed help. As his friend, I tried. I showed up after a couple of my shifts, but I was not built to watch children. As I tried to watch her, she would just cry over and over again, day after day. No matter how similar I looked, I could never be the kind of human that she needed. Eventually, I had to stop, as I was running out of time for myself, and just being around her meant losing energy I needed to complete my own workload. Time went by, and I saw Lem less and less. We finished the ship, and I was recognized as a key part of the crew. When the day arrived, I walked to the lottery and passed Lem on the way. I saw the life drain out of his eyes when he realized what day it was. We traded our best wishes and went our separate ways. I never saw him after that. As it turns out, the lottery, like most things the corpos try to sell us at the bottom, was nothing but a hoax. The pencil pushers and upper management were the only ones included in the lottery. When we found out about this, hundreds of workers, myself included, started to press them. We started to demand a fair lottery on the spot. My only comfort in all of this was that Lem and Mina were far, far away when the guards started firing into the crowd. I decided that day that I wouldn't let another story end like that. But before I even met Lem, I also met Feng, a young, idealistic maintenance man who worked for the governing force on the Eye. To be entirely transparent, I just started helping him out of self-interest. I found out that the corporation that made me was tracking me via a device that was wired into my brain. Feng offered to fix that for me. I just needed to help him. For lack of a better term, find the rat. He believed that one of the old guard, one of the corpos who ran the ring into the ground before it became neutral, was still alive, and worse, secretly controlling the organization he worked for. So I decided to help him. It was a bit out of character, but I needed a break, and if I was gonna find a home anywhere on this ring, I couldn't have that tracker. Did I believe him? Hell no. But if I helped him, I was sure once the investigation was over, he would help me out. Luckily, being the equivalency of a self-aware AI, I was naturally able to see and interact with the mess of informational nodes and signals that traveled around the station. This meant, with Feng's techie magic and my synthetic attributes combined, whatever we wanted to know was always within our reach. We started small. We hacked a couple of old pre-collapse nodes and found info on the guy. Then things got heavy quick. Turns out Feng was right. The bastard was hiding among us, secretly working his way back up the corporate ladder until he was the one making the decisions again. Feng decided to confront him, and I went along. I had gotten entirely too invested, but we had the info to nail him to a cross, goddammit. We got past the guards, made it to him in person, compared him to the images we had retrieved, and we knew for a fact we got the bastard. But then he called our bluff, and the whole thing fell apart. Feng found himself hiding out at his friend's bar on the bad side of the neighborhood, while I got a "if I ever see you again, it will be the last time" from one of the most powerful men on the station. Things were looking bleak. But Feng didn't give up, not on justice and not on me. He made contact with me again, and we persevered. We found more information about what the old bastard had been up to, and more importantly, what he was doing next. Under everybody's noses, there were hundreds of construction bots the size of ships being transported to the wastes, a deserted and inoperable part of the station. Finally catching a break after weeks of effort, Feng hatched one last plan. Feng would sneak his way into the wastes, disguised as one of the old man's workers, and try to get close enough to get me an access point where I could then get access to the man's personal office. This meant I needed to hack into the multi-layered, hyper-encrypted defenses while Feng was actively moving around to give him the clearance he needed. If I failed, if I made a single mistake, or hell, if I just took a little too long, Feng would be dead. And this is where my last story comes in. Enter Emphis. Emphis is a gentle giant of a man who runs a food stall on the main stretch of the station, just down the way from Sabine's clinic. When I first arrived, I thought I was going to starve to death. I knew nobody and had nothing, but he was there. Without a word, he gestured for me to take a seat, and when I asked how much it would cost, he asked me for a story. On that day, I traded a story of a lost sleeper trying to find a home for a fresh meal. I came back to his stall whenever possible, and he made me another deal. I would find him fresh mushrooms from the agro part of the station, and he would make me a meal fit for a king. Each time I would bring him fresh produce, he would let me tell stories. Stories that kept me up all night, and stories that I was terrified would die with me. And each time, he would thank me for them. Then, in a moment of panic, on a day where I did not have what it took to break the security for Feng. I thought this would be the end, and he called me to his stall. After a long day of beating my head against a wall, I took a break. We ate, and I spoke. Without realizing it, I spilled all of my worries. I told him of a fellow sleeper I watched jump into the void long before I arrived here, about my powerlessness and how I wanted to stop him, but all I could do was watch. And in the end, he still thanked me. I don't know how, but he gave me the strength, the determination I needed. The next day, I was a force to be reckoned with. I tore through 6 separate layers of virtual defenses. Feng was being courted by death at every single turn, but if there is one thing that death should fear, it's me. We broke through the best security in the galaxy and accessed the cameras in the old Corpo's office just in time. He was selling the whole place. He was going to tear the entire station apart for scrap, and anyone who got in his way would be shown the harsh vacuum of space without a suit. Feng and I were of one mind. We packaged the data nicely and sent it on its merry way to any ear in the galaxy who wanted to hear. The old bastard who thought he could still decide our future didn't even see it coming. Cycles passed, and I found myself sitting at Emphis' stall again. This time with a special batch I grew myself. It was strange, feeling freedom, true freedom for the first time. Feng's fix had worked. The corpos thought I was dead, and I was more than happy for it. But I didn't know what to do with that feeling. It had been so long, too long since I had felt freedom. This time, however, Emphis was the one who told the story. He told a story eerily similar to mine. One of a poor group of friends looking to a corporation for a brighter future, to be made better. But making things better just isn't what they do. He watched some of his friends die, while others lost their limbs to their prototype implants. And in the end, they just called off the program. Now he just travels, with nothing but his freedom truly belonging to him. He decided to be a part of everyone else's story, even if it was just in the smallest, most insignificant way. And I will forever thank him for it. All right, that's it. That is it. Game done. That being said, I didn't even touch on half of the characters I encountered in my first run. I didn't talk about the bounty hunter who tried to kill me, nor the sentient vending machine that helped me escape from a hunter-killer program. Hell, I didn't even tell you about the true ending my sleeper eventually met. But that's all you're getting. Go play the game. I highly, highly recommend it. I am currently on my second playthrough, and again, it just won the award for the best game by a solo developer from the Game Awards. So get on in there and let me know. Who did you get tied in with? Whose story are you a part of? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. As always, I am Nobody, and I hope to see you wherever our stories may lead.